Right?
Matt LaFleur and the GM, Brian Gutekunst, are getting an extension. Of course they are. Remember when the season ended and there were many people calling for Matt LaFleur's head? Guys, he's made the playoffs in 6 or 7 years. He's, by all accounts, elevated Aaron Rodgers when he got him closer to the end of his prime. And Brian Gutekunst, can we not at least discuss the Packers' May draft over the last 30 years, as well as anybody in the NFL? That was just, it was recency bias. It was everybody's freaking out. The truth is, once Micah Parsons got hurt, the defense was kind of average. And at wide receiver and tight end, they had key losses due to injury.
Where Colin...
Yes. Well, they still ought to have been victorious irrespective of Micah Parsons, and that's the complication. And even some of these injuries, which undoubtedly transpired, they still should have triumphed straightforwardly. They should have defeated the Bears on both occasions, and they did not. And that's where everyone was somewhat alarmed and genuinely aggravated. And I comprehend that aggravation. I was not aligned with dismissing Matt LaFleur. That is certainly not the scenario, because I consider Matt LaFleur an elite coach, a phenomenal coach. And this notion that you can simply progress from a Matt LaFleur and miraculously obtain a superior coach is optimistic speculation. Optimistic speculation. Okay. When you examine some of the appointments around the league, they are overreaching. They are unquestionably overreaching. And so, Matt LaFleur still possesses ample opportunity for development as a coach and has, the capacity to adapt. And that's acceptable. That's acceptable. He is still a youthful coach who is still acquiring knowledge and evolving, just like Sean McVay required to accomplish, just like Andy Reid required to accomplish, just like Shanahan required to, just like every exceptional coach. And now with the injuries that the Packers have endured, it would have provided them a broader margin for error. So you don't have to be as flawless, and then you still secure those contests that that I've referenced earlier. But lacking that, it then can accentuate some of the aforementioned problems that you sense have been afflicting you. And I think that's what that accomplishes. That's what that accomplished more. And that's where an Andy Reid can radiate so significantly, because even in those imperfect circumstances, he can still genuinely exhibit all of his strengths substantially. Before I proceed further, please Green Bay Packers fans, do not neglect to view the complete length of the video and subscribe while watching the video. That, beyond any doubt, is the most optimal method to support the growth of this channel, so I can continue producing the finest Green Bay Packers content that I can. But yeah, no, I just think when you survey the league and you survey some of the predicaments these teams encounter themselves within, you would be hard-pressed to not desire Matt LaFleur to persist, honestly. And even the roster assembly from a roster assembly, with Brian and Matt, jointly, they execute the correct maneuvers. They execute the correct maneuvers. They execute the correct determinations. This team has consistently been sufficiently excellent. And in 2023, they did overwhelm the Dallas Cowboys on the road, which was remarkable. They were positioned to conquer the 49ers and advance to the NFC Championship game. There were a couple of dropped interceptions that should have proceeded their way that they simply didn't. They didn't execute. And, Jordan Love was imperfect in that game, but that was a contest that they quite frankly should have secured, but they didn't. And then the subsequent year, they were unequivocally just devastated with injuries. Jordan Love was now in the lineup. You were defeated by the Philadelphia Eagles, who literally captured the Super Bowl. Yeah, I'm simply not going to hold your feet to the fire for that season. And then this year is genuinely the year that you could hold this team's feet to the fire more than any other year, from my viewpoint. And that's when you're merely somewhat okay, yes, we can identify some complications. We can identify some errors that, whomever you wish to emphasize, Matt LaFleur, Jordan Love, whatever. But when you're examining a roster assembly, you're was it astute to venture out and acquire Micah? Yeah, it was. The assembly concerning the running game, the passing game, craft, etc. Were those all the correct decisions? Having your, as your defensive coordinator, it's was that the correct decision? And it's yes, 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 yes. All of these were all unquestionably affirmatives. You cannot truly locate many illustrations, and I'm certain there's one or two where you're We ventured out and appointed this individual as our defensive coordinator, and it was simply mistaken. We ventured out and executed a maneuver for, a Micah Parsons, and it was simply erroneous. Like, that's not how this season unfolded for the Packers. But they lost 2 crushing contests in a crushing manner against the Chicago Bears. And that's simply poor. That's simply poor. That will perpetually wound the Packers' spirit. That will perpetually wound. But they were the superior team. And then when you observe how the Bears contested the Rams, you're like, we could have accomplished that. We could have. Our defense is superior to the Rams. Oh, now, although you would have been on the road, so it would have been warmer climate, so the game could have been dissimilar, but they're like, we possess a superior defense than the Bears. So you do merely require to witness this team ultimately healthy, prepared to proceed, which then does expand the margin for error. I'm not going to attribute the injuries on the Packers were defeated because I don't consider that equitable. I don't consider that equitable. And you must be capable of, possess the nuance in some of these dialogues where you're like, yes, the injuries affected them. They undoubtedly would have been superior without the injuries, but they were still in positions to secure those games. And quite frankly, should have secured those games. And without those injuries specifically to Kraft and Micah more than anything, the margin for error merely expands, and then perhaps you're not in that predicament. And I just think when you perceive it through that perspective, matters merely become considerably more logical personally. And that manner, you're merely like, okay, but I do desire to continue to witness the evolution of Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love. And I maintained stating this season to me is entirely concerning Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur's association desiring to ascend that subsequent tier. And now entering this season, I genuinely desire to acquire the sense that Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love are merely genuinely concentrated, genuinely linked, and they're truly in agreement. And I desire to acquire a sense that Matt LaFleur is impacting Jordan Love and Jordan Love is impacting Matt LaFleur. I desire to be capable of observing them and sense like they are a unit. That's what I perceive with Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford. That's what I perceive with Mahomes and Andy. Like, it seems cooperative, especially because we perceive them because McVay is so expressive and he's consistently like sprinting up and down the sideline, and the television merely adores to display us him. You witness Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford. It consistently seems like they're having a discussion with each other, that there's an actual reciprocal discussion. It's what did you perceive? What did I perceive? What did you perceive? What did I perceive? This is what I'm contemplating. What are you contemplating? I don't acquire that sense necessarily with Jordan Love. And listen, Jordan Love is considerably more subdued in that respect, which I don't detest at all. Jalen Hurts is that manner a little bit. And, I think something that I accentuated this actually in an Eagles clip previously, Nick, because Nick Foles articulated it and he conversed about how, like, as a quarterback, you must attain a point where you're conversing with your coach so much more, where you're like, this is what I'm perceiving. This is what I'm contemplating. This is what I'm sensing. And I do desire to witness more of that from Jordan Love with Matt LaFleur. But I think it's also incumbent upon Matt LaFleur to elicit that from Jordan Love. And so I desire to witness that more cooperative of a relationship at that, at this juncture. Like it's time, like that is now the subsequent tier. That is even the subsequent tier. And again, it's not to declare that Jordan Love I'm not going to declare that like Jordan Love's never conversing or communicating with Matt LaFleur. There's never any of those instances when you witness them conversing, and it seems like it's cooperative. But like, again, when we're conversing about on a spectrum, Jordan Love is definitely more of a, he's more than willing, which I value, more than willing to merely operate the offense as requested, as presented, which is an excellent thing. And he accomplishes it at an exceptionally elevated tier. And I desire to witness them be more balanced in that dynamic at this juncture, because I think obviously the experience with Matt LaFleur is present. And certainly at this juncture, Jordan Love, as now 3 complete seasons as the full-time starter. He's not 22 years old. This is not his second season. He's participated in multiple playoff contests. He's ascended to the circumstance. He's faltered. He's been astounding. He's been terrible. He's endured the complete NFL experience at this juncture. So his experience is immensely precious. His perceptions are immensely precious. And I desire to witness that converge. I desire to witness that, those trajectories intersect. But those are merely my reflections. I would absolutely adore to hear yours. What do you all contemplate regarding the Green Bay Packers? The determinations that they're executing so far in the offseason, what they're aiming to accomplish. Inform me of your reflections. I read each and every comment, so you concur with me or dispute with me. Either way, let's engage in some discussions. Let's engage in some debates. But ultimately, let's merely derive some enjoyment. Please do contemplate subscribing. We are constructing an amazing community here and absolutely adore to observe you part of it. I desire to construct something that we all generally feel connected to, something that we are genuinely enthusiastic to be part of. I believe we are well on our path to accomplishing it. Please don't neglect to award this video a thumbs up. It genuinely assists the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so profoundly.